Welcome to Audiobook 365 Stories.
Every Saturday night, the Cloverleaf Social Club had a dance in the hall of the Give and Take Athletic Association on the East Side. To go to one of these dances, you had to be a member of the Give and Take. Or, if you were good at waltzing, you had to work in Rheingold's paperbox factory. But any Cloverleaf member could bring a guest to one dance. Most members brought a girl from the paperbox factory they liked, and not many strangers got to join the dances. Maggie Toole, because of her dull eyes, big mouth, and awkward dancing, went to the dances with Anna McCarty and her boyfriend. Anna and Maggie worked together in the factory and were best friends. So Anna always made Jimmy Burns take her to Maggie's house every Saturday night so her friend could go to the dance with them. The Give and Take Athletic Association was true to its name. The hall on Orchard Street had equipment to build muscles. The members used their muscles to fight the police and other groups. Between these serious activities, the Saturday night dance with the Paperbox Factory girls was a nice break and a good cover. Sometimes there was a secret event, and if you were lucky, you might see a small but exciting boxing match. On Saturdays, Rheingold's Paperbox Factory closed at 3 p.m. One afternoon, Anna and Maggie walked home together. At Maggie's door, Anna said, "As usual, be ready at 7. Maggie and Jimmy and I will come by for you." But what was this? Instead of the usual thanks from Maggie, there was a proud look, a smile at the corners of her mouth, and a sparkle in her dull brown eye. "Thanks, Anna," said Maggie, "but you and Jimmy don't need to bother tonight. I have a gentleman friend who's coming to take me to the dance." Pretty Anna grabbed her friend, shook her, and asked her many questions. Maggie Toole found a boyfriend. Plain, dear, loyal, and unattractive Maggie, who was so sweet as a friend but never asked to dance or to sit on a park bench. How did it happen? Who was it? "You'll see tonight," said Maggie, excited. "He's really great. He's taller than Jimmy, and he dresses nicely. I'll introduce him, Anna, as soon as we get to the hall." Anna and Jimmy were among the first to arrive at the hall that evening. Anna's eyes were bright, looking at the door to see her friend's new boyfriend. At 8:30, Miss Toole walked into the hall with her escort. Quickly, she saw her friend Anna with her loyal Jimmy. "Oh, wow!" cried Anna. "Maggie found a great guy. He looks so good, right?" "Do whatever you want," said Jimmy, in a grumpy voice. "Go after him if you like. These new guys always win. Don't worry about me. He's not the best, I guess." "Be quiet, Jimmy. You know what I mean. I'm happy for Maggie. It's the first guy she ever had." "Oh, here they come." Maggie walked across the floor like a small boat next to a big ship. Her companion really was as great as her friend Anna said. He was 2 inches taller than most Give and Take members. His dark hair curled, and his eyes and teeth shined when he smiled. The young men of the Cloverleaf Club didn't care much about looks. They cared more about strength, fighting skills, and staying out of trouble with the police. They didn't like using fancy looks to impress girls. They believed in showing big muscles, tight coats over their chests, and being confident. Even their bow legs were a way to attract girls. They looked at this new guy with surprise and jealousy. "A friend of mine," Mr. Terry O'Sullivan was how Maggie introduced him. She took him around the room, showing him to each new Clover Leaf member. She almost looked pretty now, with her eyes shining because she had her first boyfriend, just like a kitten with its first toy. Maggie Tools got a guy at last, was what the paper box girl said. Look at Maggie's new guy, said the give and take members with a bit of jealousy. Usually, at the weekly dances, Maggie stood against the wall alone. She was so thankful when someone asked her to dance that it made him feel less special. She even got used to Anna poking Jimmy with her elbow to make him ask Maggie to dance. But tonight, things were different. Terry O'Sullivan was her Prince Charming, and Maggie felt special for the first time. Even though our story mixes fairy tales and reality, nothing could spoil Maggie's perfect night. The girls crowded around her, wanting to meet her new boyfriend. The Cloverleaf young men, after 2 years of ignoring her, suddenly noticed how nice Maggie was. They showed off their muscles to her and asked her to dance. Maggie did well, but Terry O'Sullivan got even more attention. He shook his curls, smiled, and moved gracefully. He danced beautifully and he spoke easily. He even waltzed twice with the paper box girl that Dempsey Donovan brought. Dempsey was the leader of the association. He wore a nice suit and could lift himself up twice with one hand. He was one of Big Mike O'Sullivan's helpers and never had trouble. No police officer dared to arrest him. When he hurt someone or caused trouble, a police officer would just say, "The captain wants to see you for a few minutes when you have time, Dempsey." But there would be important people there with gold chains and cigars, and someone would tell a funny story. Then, Dempsey would go back to working out with weights. So, dancing twice with Dempsey Donovan's girl was as dangerous as walking on a tightrope over Niagara Falls. At 10 o'clock, Big Mike O'Sullivan came to the door and looked at the scene for 5 minutes. He always came for 5 minutes, smiled at the girls, and gave out good cigars to the happy boys. Dempsey Donovan was immediately by his side, talking quickly. Big Mike looked at the dancers carefully, smiled, shook his head, and left. The music stopped. The dancers went to sit on the chairs along the walls. Terry O'Sullivan, with a charming bow, handed a pretty girl in blue to her partner and started to find Maggie. Dempsey stopped him in the middle of the floor. Everyone sensed something important was happening and turned to look at them. There was a feeling that 2 fighters had met. A few give and takes with tight coats came closer. "One moment, Mr. O'Sullivan," said Dempsey. "I hope you're having fun. Where did you say you live?" The 2 fighters were evenly matched. Dempsey might have had a bit more weight. O'Sullivan was quick and broad. Dempsey had a cold, hard look, a serious mouth, a strong jaw, a clear complexion, and the calmness of a champion. The visitor looked angrier and less controlled. They were enemies by nature. Both were too strong and special to share the spotlight. Only one could win. "I live on Grand Street," said O'Sullivan rudely. "It's easy to find me at home." "Where do you live?" Dempsey ignored the question. "You say your name is O'Sullivan," he continued. "Well, Big Mike says he never saw you before." "There are lots of things he's never seen," said the popular guy at the dance. Usually, Dempsey said in a smooth but rough voice, O'Sullivans around here know each other. You brought one of our ladies here, and we want to be sure about you. If you have a family tree, show us some proof. Or do you want us to get the truth out of you another way? Mind your own business, suggested O'Sullivan calmly. Dempsey's eyes brightened. He held up a finger as if he had a great idea. I got it now, he said warmly. It was just a mistake. You're not an O'Sullivan. You're a ring-tailed monkey. Sorry we didn't recognize you at first. O'Sullivan's eyes flashed with anger. He moved quickly, but Andy Geoghegan was ready and caught his arm. Dempsey nodded at Andy and William McMahon, the club secretary, and walked quickly toward a door at the back of the hall. 2 other members of the Give and Take Association joined them. Terry O'Sullivan was now with the Board of Rules and Social Referees. They spoke to him softly and briefly and took him through the back door. This needs some explanation. Behind the hall was a small room rented by the club. Here, personal problems from the ballroom floor were settled, man to man, with bare hands, under the board's supervision. No lady could say she saw a fight at a clover leaf dance in years. The gentlemen members made sure of that. Dempsey and the board acted so smoothly that many people in the hall didn't notice O'Sullivan being taken away. Maggie was one of them. She looked around for her escort. Wake up, said Rose Cassidy. Didn't you see? Dempsey Donovan picked a fight with your boyfriend, and they took him to the back room. How do you like my hair, Maggie? Maggie put a hand on her chest. Gone to fight with Dempsey, Maggie said breathlessly. They have to be stopped. Dempsey Donovan can't fight him. He'll kill him. Why do you care? Said Rose. Don't they fight at every dance? But Maggie was already moving quickly through the crowd of dancers. She burst through the rear door into the dark hall and pushed hard against the door of the room where they fought. It opened, and she saw the scene, the board members standing with their watches out, Dempsey Donovan in his shirt sleeves moving lightly and skillfully, ready to fight, and Terry O'Sullivan standing with his arms folded and a dangerous look in his eyes. Without slowing down, she jumped forward with a scream and grabbed O'Sullivan's arm just in time to take away the long, bright knife he had pulled out. The knife fell and made a loud noise on the floor. A knife fight at the Give and Take Association. Such a thing had never happened before. Everyone stood still for a moment. Andy Geoghegan curiously kicked the knife with his shoe, like someone who found an old, unknown weapon. Then O'Sullivan hissed something through his teeth. Dempsey and the board exchanged looks. Dempsey looked at O'Sullivan without anger, like looking at a stray dog, and nodded toward the door. The back stairs, Giuseppe, he said. Someone will throw your hat down after you. Maggie walked up to Dempsey Donovan. Her cheeks were red, and slow tears were running down them, but she looked him bravely in the eye. I knew it, Dempsey, she said, as her eyes grew dull even with tears. I knew he was Italian. His name is Tony Spinelli. I came in when they told me you and him were fighting. Italians always carry knives. But you don't understand, Dempsey. I never had a boyfriend in my life. I got tired of coming with Anna and Jimmy every night, so I made a deal with him to call himself O'Sullivan and brought him along. I knew he wouldn't get in if he came as an Italian. I guess I'll quit the club now. Dempsey turned to Andy Geoghegan. Throw that knife out the window, he said, and tell everyone inside that Mr. O'Sullivan got a phone call to go to Tammany Hall. Then he turned back to Maggie. "Say, Mag," he said, "I'll walk you home. And how about next Saturday night? Will you come to the dance with me if I pick you up?" It was amazing how quickly Maggie's eyes could change from dull to bright and shiny. "With you, Dempsey?" she stammered. "Sure. Would a duck swim?"